Welcome to the Fandom Podcast Network special presentation of Time Warp 1984, the 40th anniversary of movies and pop culture, and we are discussing August of 1984. As I mentioned, we love to cover everything in the years that we're talking, and this is going to be all the TV, music, notable news, events, and of course, the movies. My name is Kevin, and I will be your host, but I need to get my co-host in here. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce the queen of movie foo first, because I got to give her some credit. She's been killing it here on Time Warp, and I'm very, very appreciative. I'd like to welcome Miss Lacee Adderhold. What's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm very excited. Very excited. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. And we are in the middle of the summer months of 1984. And of course, I got to bring back my brother from another mother, the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast with me, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, buddy?
Can we get the time warp rolling? Because you're taking away from my Atari 5200 playing time right now.
Well, this is Time Warp. This is our Fandom Flashback show here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We're discussing the movies of 1984. And I love this picture of all three of us recently at the library of awesomeness that is Lacee's movie collection there. I love that picture of us.
Lacee, I really think you need to set that room up like a speakeasy where it's kind of hidden. Just because it's like the hidden video vault.
No, she has it. She just didn't show us the room, so she's keeping that to herself.
This is just what I have to show the public.
If you're listening to this, make sure you check out the video because we're showing some cool pictures here.
The secret vault of physical media actually has only her 8 tracks in it.
So we
not like that old.
we like to show what we've been talking about, what's arrived on Time Warp here on the Fandom Podcast recently. And we recently had a really good podcast where we talked about Time Warp, the NFL Raider players who acted in movies and TV. We had my good friend Murph from Raiders Fan Radio and author and big pop culture fan, Mr. Rich Schmelter. And we discussed all of the Raiders players that were in movies and television. And we also did Buffy last year. Make sure you check out our TV retrospective on that. But we've been covering the year of 84, and we have our earlier podcast up, both video and audio. Make sure you check them out for January, February, March, April, May, and June, and July. And guys, I just wanted to mention something real quick. I'm going to go back here to, March. And that's where we did Romancing the Stone, guys. And I did something fun the other night. Here in Santa Barbara, they are having a very special event where they're celebrating the movie makers and stars that live in Santa Barbara. And as you guys may or may not know, Santa Barbara has a lot of celebrities in it because it's just up north from Hollywood. Probably the biggest celebrity that lives up here is Oprah, as well as Ellen DeGeneres. But we got a bunch of other people up here, and one of them is Robert Zemeckis, and they are having Zemeckis Month at one of our oldest theaters here in Santa Barbara called the Granada, and they are showcasing Robert Zemeckis films, and they started off with Romancing the Stone. And a good buddy of mine got me free tickets for that, and I was right up in front, and they interviewed him before they started the movie. But what's funny is that he was interviewed with questions that the audience were going, whoa, no way. But if you've been listening to Time Warp, we're like, yeah, we covered that with the trivia. Basically, how Romancing the Stone opened up the door. It was an insane hit, and he was able to do the projects that he wanted to do, including Back to the Future, Kyle.
Yeah, but no. It's not just the trivia from Time Warp, because we use our Zemeckis cube, too.
Yes, but it was weird. I had front row center seats for this, and he was literally 4 or 5 feet away from me, this legend. And next, this coming week, they're showing Back to the Future, and then they're going to be showing Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then Forrest Gump, and then the Polar Express is going to be coming back for the holidays. So, and then Andrew Davis, director, of course, The Fugitive and other films, he's a Santa Barbara resident, and they're going to be showcasing his films, including The Fugitive. So I just had to share that because that was really, really cool. Nice. So we are talking. Oh yeah, was there something there? Someone had to say something.
I said nice.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, of course, we are discussing, this was July, but before we get into August here, Bostonians. We touched on it last show, and I was not a fan of it. I couldn't finish the film, but this was something that interested Lacey, and you ended up ordering it online to watch it. Where I told you just could have gone on YouTube or Tubi, but yeah, no, I need my copy. So you watched the Bostonians.
I did.
Of course, starring Christopher Reeve and Vanessa Redgrave. Give us your quick thoughts on it.
I dug it. It's traditional. It's very, very similar to the other Merchant Ivory movies. It's right in their wheelhouse. It's not something that, took a hard left turn. It's right up my alley, and it was delightful. And I don't care if you didn't like it. I did.
I got to give one thing I did forget to mention. I thought the costumes were pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, the costumes were great. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the director's name, but he definitely gets a great costume.
James Ivory.
James Ivory, yeah. Fantastic.
The thing is, it's a lot of times in their films, it's hard for the lead male character because it's usually seen from a very stifled point of view, and it's hard to play the bad guy when you're not really a bad guy because that's just how it was back then.
Right.
So I think that a lot of people didn't realize that Christopher Reeve, who had been like America's boyfriend for 4 years or whatever with Superman and Clark Kent, it's interesting to see him play something where he just, even though he was playing someone who was like kind of the time, like it's just a crappy role. Like it's a crappy situation for, a man to be in.
It's interesting you say that because, and we were talking before we recorded that even though I was not a fan of the film, he was good in it. And I just, I wanted to see him branch out more and do some non-superhero stuff because he's a damn good actor. We are discussing the movies of 1984. And let's, first of all, let's take a step back into time. 1984. Let's fuel up that DeLorean with a flux capacitor, slingshot around the sun aboard a captured Klingon bird of prey. Take a step into that blue police box or phone box, or step into that quantum leap accelerator, or take a dip into that hot tub time machine, or be killed and ingested blood from a male alpha or an alpha male. What were those things called in To Live, Die, Repeat?
The alpha and
Alpha mimic.
Does
that mean we're doing the same podcast over and over for the rest of the time warp?
That's it. Be prepared. Let's head back into time here, guys. For those of you that don't know, we just did Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat on the Fandom Podcast Network for Couch Potato Theater. So make sure you guys check that out. Okay, guys, so let's get into some news here. Oops, I went right past it here. This is world news. Interesting stuff has happened. And August 3rd, Mary Lou Retton in 1984 of the U.S. Olympic gymnastics team scores a perfect 10 for her final vault. She is the first American woman to win an Olympic gymnastics gold medal. And what I find interesting about that is this was in Los Angeles, and we just had the Paris Olympics finish. And they announced that the next Olympics in 2028 will return to Los Angeles. Same venue, the big Coliseum there in LA. And also, it will be 50 years later, if I remember correctly, 84, 2028. Is that right, Lacey? Am I doing my math right?
Well, I'm not super sure about that because it's every 4 years. So it can't be 50 years because it's either 48 or 52. But,
okay, so was it 52 then?
Unless the last Olympics they had was a Winter Olympics.
No, it was the LA Olympics.
Yeah,
so.
I thought it was the summer, but yeah. And from what I understand, they've already decided that they're not going to bring back breakdancing.
Apparently, yes. Yeah, that's another show.
Weren't they going to add a whole new version of the pole vault, though?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
We're going to leave that right there, Kyle. Right there. The next note I have here, August 11th, Ronald Reagan, U.S. president, jokes about bombing Russia during a mic check for a radio interview. The remark is leaked to the press and becomes an infamous report around the world. August 16th, automobile executive John DeLorean is acquitted of drug trafficking charges in Los Angeles. The founder of the DeLorean Motor Company was arrested in 1982 after being caught on tape agreeing to bankroll a drug deal worth $24 million. The tape is deemed entrapment, and DeLorean is cleared of all charges. That was a big deal. I remember seeing, what was that video that leaked online, I think? Yeah, it was a big deal.
Didn't that kind of start the curse of the DeLorean too? Because
probably, yeah. But it does live on in Back to the Future, so there you go. August 27th, last bit of world news here, and there's some sad irony to this. In a program designed to inspire more children to take an interest in math and science, Ronald Reagan announces NASA's Teacher in Space project. The project will send real teachers into space alongside astronauts and return them to class afterwards to share their experience. Of course, we know what happens 2 years later with the Challenger devastation. So, yeah, there you go. All right, we have some celebrity born in 84 here, guys. Not many here in August. Eva Torres, actor, singer, model, martial arts instructor, and wrestler. Kyle, do you know who Eve Torres is?
Oh, I know who Eva Torres is. She had a good, probably 4 or 5 year real popular run in WWE, but she also did some MMA, fitness models. She there is a point where she was probably one of the most searched women on the internet. Let me put it that way.
Okay, gotcha. Also, Sarah Romer, an actress, also was born in August of 1984. We also have some deaths in 1984. We have Mary Miles Minter, an American actress born in 1902. Richard Burton, Welsh actor, born in 1925. Richard Deacon, American actor, born in 1922. Walter Tevis, American author and screenwriter, 1928. And Clyde Cook, an Australian actor, born in 1891. And probably one of the more famous deaths here, August 25th, American author Truman Capote, author of the novella Breakfast at Tiffany's, dies of liver cancer at the age of 59. All right. Let's get into some tech here, guys. And this one I found kind of interesting because of the type of tech that it is. And this is the laser film. Was a video disc format developed by McDonnell Douglas in 1984 that was a transmissive laser-based playback medium, unlike its competitor Laserdisc, which was a reflective system. It worked by having a laser shine through one side of the disc to receiving sensor on the other side, where the beam of the laser would be interrupted by a spiral of small dots on the disc. Laser film players were chiefly manufactured in Japan by Sun Tzu, and McDonnell Douglas specifications and branded with their logo type. But however, this format was employed for use in their flight simulators for McDonnell Douglas by linking several players together. And the laser film format was originally based on earlier video disc formats called ARDEV, developed by a company of the same name, which was originally a subsidiary of Atlantic Richfield until 1981. Now, I wanted to bring this up, guys, that the laser disc player, which was a similar component, and the player looked kind of familiar to this. You kind of put in this cartridge as opposed to the laser disc where the tray comes out and you lay the disc in. And the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted to show you, this is what you're watching the video here. Let me go ahead and change the view for those of you that are watching. This is here a Raiders of the Lost Ark video disc, or the video disc player. And it's not the laser disc. And if you you'll notice that you put it in the player this way and it pops this thing out and there's this kind of disc that it reads. So there you go. That's the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then soon after that, you get the laser disc itself, which looks like an album. You pull it out. There you go. All right. And then followed, of course, more popular. We had the little battle between the Betamax and the VHS, of course. There's a Betamax version of Raiders of the Lost Ark and the, of course, videotape. And we know why the videotape won the wars, right, Kyle?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. We do. A certain industry. Thank you very much.
Yes. But I did want to mention that because there's a family of video disc players out there.
Now, Kevin, do you have a laser? I half expect you to have one of those laser film players, and I think you just also established you own more different versions of Raiders of the Lost Ark than anybody else on the planet.
Yeah, this is true. What's interesting though is the video disc player. I found one, but it was non-working. and so I didn't buy it. It's very hard to find working versions of that. I have a Betamax player, but unfortunately it's not working, but it is a really awesome 25-pound clock. So there you go. Products introduced in 1984. Well, we got some toys here, guys. And we usually like to introduce about 3 of them here. And the totally tubular toys are Make a Care Bear kit, priced $8.99. Lets you make 2 precious little favorites. This yarn sewing activity features Tender Heart Bear and Happy Birthday Bear. Kit includes safety needle yarn and plastic grids. We also have the Max Steel Erector Robot, priced at $44.99. Meet Max Steel, a remote control robot from Erector that let you build yourself. You are in control of the robot's movements. He can grasp items with his claw, hand, and pick up metal objects with his magnetic hand. Ages 7 and up. And the last thing that we have here, guys, is the official Menudo rock guitar. This was kind of, I guess, I'm assuming it looks like a working guitar there with the band picture on it. Priced $14.99. Join the Fab Five with this official Menudo rock guitar, double cutaway, 30-inch long plastic body. Has group photos, 6 nylon strings with precision friction tuning pegs, pick and music book included. Kyle, which one of these did you have?
So let's talk about the guitar for a minute, because if you were a certain age in the 80s, it might not have been the Menudo guitar, but they took any property, slapped it on a plastic guitar with some plastic strings, and put it out there. I had the Dukes of Hazzard guitar when I was a kid. I'm just saying.
What was that? Sorry?
I had the Dukes of Hazzard guitar when I was a kid.
Gotcha.
Just saying. But yeah, no, at some point you owned one of these because somebody got it for you as a birthday gift or something. But yeah, everybody at some point had one of those guitars. The Max Erector set, that was just the thing. It was like one of those Radio Shack cool toys. It's like, ooh, and look at it, it's so fancy. But then you look at it now and you're like, yeah, that's a bit rough.
Lacey, did you have any of these?
I feel like the girl who lived down the street from me had the guitar, but it was like a Barbie one. So same thing that Kyle was talking about. Like it was just the same guitar. They just stuck a different like property on it and called it, and it was pink. It was hot pink.
Right.
I vaguely remember her smacking her brother with it in the yard. Yeah.
They made good weapons, so yeah, I guess so.
I mean, those things, like, once the strings broke, you're legit looking at a solid like blunt object.
Yeah.
That's a good. Mm-hmm.
It's a great weapon for the zombie apocalypse.
There you go.
Let's hit some music, guys. Okay. 1984 in music, and we're going to talk about some music news that took place in August. And the first one is Iron Maiden kicks off the World Slavery Tour in Warsaw, Poland, with shows in Hungary and Yugoslavia soon to follow. This marks the first time a Western band has ever brought a full concert production behind the Iron Curtain. And I did want to mention my own fandom here as I reach off and show this video here of my Iron Maiden Power Slave album, which came out in 1984. This was the album that made me an Iron Maiden fan. And I recently got this new edition of the album signed by Mr. Derek Riggs, who had done all of the art for Iron Maiden. And he's on the convention circuit a lot. Great artist. And he does a really cool article there. Thank you for zooming on me there, Kyle. I appreciate that very much. So yeah, Iron Maiden rules. Yeah. August 10th, Red Hot Chili Peppers released their debut album, The Red Hot Chili Peppers. They became someone, right? Kind of big, I think, Lacey?
There's something about that band. I always thought they had a flea problem.
Yeah, I think one of them became an actor in some beach movie too, with a guy pretending to be a surfer.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. None of them understand how to wear socks.
That might go back to the pole vault conversation, so we're not going to go there.
Right. Can I backtrack just a second to the Iron Maiden thing really quick?
Yes.
I went to Hungary and Romania for my 40th birthday. I did a full loop of Europe. And I have a friend who's very into Iron Maiden. And when I was there, we went to the mall in Hungary because we needed to pick up some just little things we had forgotten. And if you go into the back hallways of the malls in Hungary, the whole wall was just plastered in these giant like floor to ceiling 20 feet wide like action shots of Iron Maiden in concert over the years. And it seemed very odd to me that just like randomly in a mall, like back area, like when you're like walking towards the restrooms in the mall.
Right.
And so I remember taking a bunch of pictures and like sending them to Steve and being like, hey man, Iron Maiden's like huge here.
Iron Maiden's fandom is worldwide.
But it was just the weirdest placement. It was like weird.
No.
It was just a very odd thing just to be like walking around like, okay, so they like really like Iron Maiden here, but they okay, all right. So I was like, I took all the pictures.
A lot of metal bands really thrive in those countries because they've really embraced that music. That's really cool.
Sure. You said Hungry, and I was like, oh, that's why. That's why.
The last bit of news in '84 was August 31st. Canadian music video channel Much Music begins broadcasting. And the first video played is Rush's The Enemy Within. And my first trip to Canada back in 1999, I discovered Much Music in my hotel room and loved it because they were actually playing music. But more importantly, they were playing good music of bands I'd never heard of because they hadn't quite broken over the border. And they had some popular people that we did know, of course, but it was nice to get familiar with all the people that were very popular in Canada at the time, and that's how I discovered some artists that I still stayed in tune with. So yeah,
this is like Canadian MTV, but they stuck with actual music and stuff.
Yep, and they're still around as far as I know, and they do a really good job of interviewing and doing live shows on their main set and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Right on.
All right, next we've got the top songs of 1984. It's one of my favorite sections here of Time Warp, and we usually pick around 8 to 10 at a time. And this time we've got songs 39 down to 32. 39 starting with Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. 38, Here Comes the Rain Again, Eurythmics. 37, Eyes Without a Face by Billy Idol. 36, Sunglasses at Night, Corey Hart. 35, Borderline by Madonna. 34, She Bop by Cyndi Lauper. 33, I Guess That's Why They Call It the Blues, Elton John. And 32, Stuck on You by Lionel Richie. Now I got to go to you first, Lacey, because I know the music's not your strong point, but I have to imagine that as we get closer to the top songs, I'm sure you recognize most of these.
I recognize 7 out of 8 of these. I'm very proud of myself this time. I'm very proud of myself right now. The only one I don't know is Lionel Richie's Stuck on You, but I feel like I know the name, but I can't hear like every other one I know. I can hear the song in my head right now.
Stuck on You.
I'm very proud of myself.
Deep in my soul that I just can't lose.
I don't know. For me, the song that really kind of hits it for me is Uptown Girl, because I went to a Christian middle school, and one day I was staying late because things happened and I was going to be picked up late. So I was just going to be sitting in the library reading, doing my homework and listening. My dad let me borrow his Walkman so I could listen to music. And I had that cassette tape and I was listening to it, and it was taken from me because it was not Christian enough for them. And then they made my father come down to the office, not then, but the next day, to retrieve his cassette players, his Walkman, because I was listening to dirty music in the library.
So which one of these is your favorite song? And is it Uptown Girl because it was naughty and you were playing with it? You were listening to it in sin?
I think it was because like it's not about like, come on, y'all. It's just a lot. I do love Sunglasses at Night. I do love She Bop. It's kind of like I loved Cyndi Lauper. So
right. Okay. Kyle, what are your favorites on here?
So I got my thing here. So I have Eyes Without a Face, which is why I wear my sunglasses at night. Uptown Girl, I Am Stuck on You, and I guess that's why they call it the blues.
Because she bopped.
Because she bopped, yeah. Kyle, you have favorites?
Sunglasses at Night is a classic. I guess that's why they call it the blues by Elton John is great. Stuck on You. My mom was a huge Lionel Richie fan, so his music kind of was always in the car going when I would ride with her at that age. But I think probably Sunglasses at Night is probably the one that kind of stands out, just because it became such a thing.
Yeah, and it's got such a hook. It's a great video. I agree. That's one of my three. That's definitely in there, along with "Here Comes the Rain Again" by the Eurythmics and "Uptown Girl." Love that video with Christy Brinkley in it. It's just it's a really cute song. And so yeah, good tunes, man. 84 is just rolling them out. Good year for music.
If they met on Uptown Girl, or if they, or is that what
they
met
did
and
actually?
got
I
married,
think that's where they met.
Or did they meet?
I heard they met on that video shoot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
There you go. Okay, what do we have next here, guys? 1984 in television. Now, usually we have a section of television that debuts during this month. But guess what? Not a lot of new TV shows debut in August, in the middle of summer. But some shows end. And I found this interesting show here, guys, that I had never heard of before. And what I found more interesting about it is who guest starred on it. And the show that I'm speaking of is called Boone. Started in 1983 and ended in 84. I believe there's only about 13 episodes. And it takes place in 1953. Boone Sawyer dreams of becoming a country music star, but his father has other ideas for the future. So basically, if I did my research right, the family's very musically inclined, obviously. And Boone Sawyer is played by Thomas Bird. Yes, there was 13 episodes before it was canceled. And you have, Catherine Moffat, who played Suzanne Sawyer. But the guest stars is what I found interesting, and I have a lot of them on the bottom of the screen here. First of all, we have a young Amanda Peterson. And for those of you that don't know, she was in one of my favorite films with Peter Dempsey, Can't Buy Me Love. And unfortunately, she passed away, I think, in her 40s due to an illness or something, or problems. And we also had Janine Turner, and also Barry Corbin. We also had Jennifer Tilly. We had Diane Franklin. No, Diane Franklin is in Robin Lively. If I remember, Teen Witch, right? Robin Lively, Teen Witch. So a very interesting young cast. Probably had to have singing chops, I'm guessing, if they're going to be on this show about a family. Have you guys heard of Boone or remember it at all? I even had trouble finding screenshots of anything about this show on the internet. These are like the best pictures I could find of whatever promos that these were.
Nope.
I got nothing.
Yeah. Nothing. All right. Moving on.
Just
Yeah.
It's Patrick Dempsey.
What did I say?
Peter
Dempsey. Yeah, right. Thank you. Patrick Dempsey.
It's all good.
Can't Buy Me Love. Great film. Great film. All right. We talk about a couple of the most watched shows, and two of them in 84 were Knots Landing and, of course, Falcon's Crest, these midnight soaps that came up. And it's funny, never watched any of these at all. My parents weren't into these, but I love pulling up these old TV guides when they were popular. And just so you know, these TV guides are issued in 1984. So that's what the cast looked like that year during this time. Knots Landing was averaging around 20 million viewers, and it lasted from 79 to 93. And Falcon's Crest, just under 20 million, 19.9. It lasted from 81 to 1990.
Wasn't it Falcon Crest that spun off into the Colbys?
No, I don't think it was Falcon Crest.
It wasn't Falcon Crest? Falcon Crest?
That was set in the Falcon's Crest was set in the vineyards of California.
Yeah. The most important thing about Falcon's Crest was it brought us Lorenzo Lamas.
There you go.
Well, right. Okay. Falcon Crest. No S.
Falcon Crest. Yeah, Falcon Crest.
Yes.
I always thought it was Falcon's Crest.
I don't think so. But I mean, it's all good. Yeah, that's
all right.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Colbys. For some reason, I thought that was the spinoff, but I guess not.
This is the Fandom Podcast Network, guys. We are discussing the movies in 1984. Let's get into the movie segment. This is what I've been waiting for. Oh, now one big movie event happens during August 25th, 1984, as Ghostbusters becomes the biggest grossing comedy film of all time in the United States, exceeding Tootsie's 177 million, going on to gross 229 million in its initial run. It is overtaken by Beverly Hills Cop in the summer of 85, but regains the record after its re-release in August 1985. It also became the biggest grossing film released by Columbia Pictures. I'm wondering if the Ghostbusters there in Columbia Pictures are like, nah, we can't let Beverly Hills Cop do it. Let's re-release it. And people went and watched it again, guys. Do you think that was part of the plan? Let's go ahead and let's stay on top here, Kyle.
That, and I mean, Ghostbusters was such a cultural phenomenon. I mean, it really was. It was everywhere in '84. Everybody had the poster. I know people who saw it 5-6 times in the theater. I mean, the hit #1 song by Ray Parker Jr. Just everything. I mean, Ghostbusters was probably for me the first non-Star Wars movie phenomenon where it was just like it just dominated.
And Lacey too, this is when we were getting a practice of these big blockbusters being re-released later in the year or next year and just raking in even more money. It was another event, another summer thing to do. If you'd already seen it, let's go see it again.
Well, and the other thing was that in that time frame, I think I feel like there was a distribution strike or a writer strike or something, and so there was a little bit of a gap in what they had available. So they just like put a few things back out in the movies that they knew would do well.
I know that happened in 81 or 81-ish, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, I feel like there was something around that time that was like a thing.
I just felt like it was just a cash grab, and it was something that we all welcome to go back to the theaters to see these again. So yeah.
Well, traditionally though, a lot of times they'd come out, they'd bring things that had been out in January, February. They'd bring them back out in like December so that it would be fresh in the Academy's eyes and thoughts.
True.
But I don't know that Ghostbusters was really like towing that line.
No, that was they were like let's re-release this because it's not out on video. How else are you going to see this thing? So yeah. Next, we have 84 celebrity film debuts. We have Olga Merediz in The Brother from Another Planet. Alyssa Milano in Old Enough. Thomas Newman, film composer, was in Reckless. Connie Nielsen was in this French film that I'm not going to pronounce right now. And Chaz Palminteri in Home Free All. What is that? Perorente on a... Yeah, I'm not even sure.
If you put it up on screen, I could read it, but I can't. I don't see where the word is.
Oh, yeah. Here you go. I'll see it. There you go. Can you read that? Connie Nielsen. Yeah.
Perorente on a... on top.
I'm going to guess that that's a French film.
Yes. Okay. I was gonna look at it and tell you what it meant, but we'll figure it out in a minute.
You want to go ahead real quick?
Well, I got to find it again. Hold on. All
right. Well, I'll let you look that up there. We're going to go ahead and get to the main movie segment here. Let me know when you find out.
Okay. No, I'm going to go to the picture so I can see it.
Cool. All right. Okay. This is Time Warp 1984, Part 8, 40th Anniversary, Movies and Pop Culture. August 1984. Here we go. Now, we do have a few films that we're going to add later just to show you they're in the cutting room floor. And the reason why they're on the cutting room floor is reasons. Either can't find them, just not streaming anywhere or whatever, or other reasons as well. So we'll mention those briefly at the end of this episode. But first, let's get into the first movie here, guys. I had not heard of this film, never seen it before until I was doing my research for this project here of 84. And the first one is Grandview, U.S.A. Made over 4,700,000 in the theater. Came out August 3rd. And it is, here it is. With only 1 week left before graduation, a young dreamer itches to renounce an uninspiring scholarship, stand up to his despotic father, and pursue a career in oceanography. But has anyone ever spread his wings away from Grandview, USA? Stars Jamie Lee Curtis, C. Thomas Howell as the young dreamer, Patrick Swayze, Jennifer Jason Leigh, John Cusack, and Joan Cusack here as well. Kyle, do you want to hit us with some trivia first?
Yeah, just real quick too. This movie came out at a time where if you cast one Cusack, you were required to cast the other Cusack. It was
yes.
I found this to be actually a very interesting piece of trivia because it ties into Dirty Dancing. The song She's Like the Wind was originally written by Patrick Swayze for Grandview, USA as a love theme for the characters played by him and Jamie Lee Curtis. It was scrapped due to the comedic and somewhat raunchy nature of the film. The track would later eventually be used 3 years later in Swayze's film Dirty Dancing. Kevin Costner was offered the role of Tim Pearson, which in the end was cast with actor C. Thomas Howell. Cast members C. Thomas Howell and Jennifer Jason Leigh, he would both later appear about a couple years later in The Hitcher, and about 30 years later in LBJ. And Patrick Swayze and C. Thomas Howell both appeared in the same year's Red Dawn and had both co-starred in the previous year in The Outsiders. So in other words, everybody was just glued to each other.
I kind of have a feeling that Patrick Swayze and C. Thomas Howell were just sharing a car and a room somewhere. Like, dude, Outsiders is done. Let's go over to that Grandview, USA. Okay. Oh, hey, look, you want to share a room for, Red Dawn? So I just feel like they're always together there. I had never seen this film, Lacee. I watched it for the first time. The takeaway that I had with it was definitely small town feel. It's hard. It also shows you it's really hard to leave a small town. We've seen a lot of films like that. It's based around this small town kind of racetrack where they do demolition derby. Patrick Swayze is one of the demolition derbies, and he has a relationship with I'm sorry, who is it? It's Jennifer Jason Leigh, but then he also has the hots for Jamie Lee Curtis, and C. Thomas Howell is crushing on Jamie Lee Curtis, and he wants to leave the town, but he's finding it kind of hard. And one thing I've come up and kind of agree on here, Lacee, is that no matter what weird haircut or outfit that you put Jamie Lee Curtis in, she looks great.
She's amazing. Like, she's freaking awesome.
Your thoughts on Grandview, USA?
I dug it. I remember seeing it a million years ago. I haven't seen it in probably that same million years. But it kind of has the it kind of had the feel of almost like a Karate Kid, or what's it, like Cruisin', or like Cruisin' USA, not Cruisin'. That's a totally different situation.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, sorry, but it just had that kind of somewhere between like Footloose and Karate Kid, and just like the Skate Town USA kind of thing. Yeah, it's
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, Kyle, and that the French film is not a French film; it's a Jerry Lewis film, which is making fun of kind of like the Inspector Clouseau situation. The title means like the loose translation is like, "I didn't see you come in. How did you get out?" Or "Where did you come from?" Or "I didn't see you come out."
Okay.
So kind of like a,
Connie Nielsen was with Jerry Lewis in this comedy spoofing.
Yeah. So it's
gotcha.
like it's like the Scooby-Doo when they go through in and outdoors, the thing like that. It's kind of that thing.
Okay, cool. Thanks for looking that up. I see why hardly no one knows what it is, because it's hard to pronounce. Kyle, your thoughts on Grandview, USA? Have you seen it?
I'm like Lacee. It's been a million years since I've seen it. It was one of those things I saw on HBO back in the day. The thing about with this movie is, one, it's interesting, and this is one of the things I love about this particular time. You have the whole Brat Pack thing kind of going on, but you have all these people who were kind of Brat Pack adjacent to, or coming up a little bit even before the Brat Pack really hit it big, like C. Thomas Howell and Patrick Swayze, kind of the outsiders group, more, right? Probably a little bit more, but one thing about this era of the 80s, from probably I'm going to say about 82 to 87, I got to get out of this small town thing, or I'm stuck in this small town when I don't want to be, or something like that.
Footloose, yeah.
Footloose. I mean, there were so many movies in this time period that dealt with this. And I mean, and I know it's a pretty classic movie trope, but it just seemed like in the 80s, this was a prime target for a film topic. And it's so interesting to see these movies like this, where you kind of forget about them, and then you look back and go, this is like a great representation of great actors in their young years of the 80s. And then, Swayze, Jennifer Jason Leigh, C. Thomas Howell, Jamie Lee Curtis. And like you said, Kevin, at this point, Jamie Lee Curtis could have worn a sheet dress and looked amazing in it.
Yeah, she was good in this. She was very charismatic. And, I think these type of small town films definitely did well across middle America, and, showcased a certain lifestyle and town that, for the people that lived on the outside in the suburbs and in the big cities, were not used to seeing, and showed us what life was like then as well. So, yeah. Next, we have The Joy of Sex. It's an interesting film here, guys. Made about $4,463,000 in the theater, and the The poster says, "Somewhere between virginity and senility lies paradise." And convinced she's dying, a pretty high school senior sets out to lose her virginity before it's too late, and encounters a boy from her school on the same mission. Excuse me. Director Martha Coolidge, stars Cameron Dye, Michelle Mayrink, Colleen Camp, Ernie Hudson, and Christopher Lloyd. Kyle, give us some trivia, please, because this movie is interesting.
I just got to say this beforehand. I think this movie would have been infinitely better if the cast that's in that trivia I'm about to read actually would have been made it into the film, because John Belushi was offered a role in this film numerous times, but he originally turned it down. He eventually accepted the role, but died shortly afterwards. The producers were excited of having him on the poster wearing a diaper, even though no such scene appeared in the script. This was in the period Penny Marshall was supposed to direct based on a screenplay by John Hughes. Martha Coolidge had a dispute with the studio in the editing room. She shot several scenes with gratuitous nudity, but chose to keep them out of the film during the cutting process. The studio disagreed and eventually fired her. Coolidge decided not to request an Alan Smithy credit, though. She had said in interviews that she sometimes regrets that decision. And actress PJ Souls, mostly of Stripes fame, was originally cast in the movie. When the production was delayed due to the death of John Belushi, when production resumed, Souls was replaced.
Okay, so I brought this movie to your guys' attention. You can actually find this full movie on YouTube if you're interested in watching it. There's one version that's better quality than the other. I have found a VHS tape of this, and I watched it on VHS, and then watched part of it on YouTube because VHS wasn't the best quality because it's an original one here. It says R restricted on there on the tape, and Martha Coolidge, by the way, guys, in case you don't know who she is, she's a director. One of my favorite movies. She directed Valley Girl here, and I got her signature right there on the disc because my wife and I went to go see the anniversary of Valley Girl with a full cast there. Everyone except Nicolas Cage was there, but she was there. Deborah Foreman was there, and it was a great experience. And Martha Coolidge was there. It was awesome. For those of you that don't know, she's directed a lot of really good films here. She's also done she did an episode of Psych and Weeds, and one thing I noticed too, she likes to use some of the same actors throughout the films. Like Cameron Dye was one of the stars in Joy of Sex here. He's the male version that's trying to lose his virginity, where Michelle Mayrink, and we know her from, of course, Real Genius and was it Revenge of the Nerds and other things as well. And when you look at the cover of this Joy of Sex, you see a beautiful girl there, just kind of, looking, seductive. And then you have the two guys right up here, right? But as I'm watching this film, I'm kind of taken aback a little bit because, and I was reading the trivia about the problem that Martha Coolidge was having, and that she had to direct like this unnecessary nudity to kind of, get this teen sex comedy up, which didn't really make it into the film. And the movie's actually pretty tame. It's R mostly for language. There isn't like a lot of nudity in this film, to be honest with you. And I'm not disappointed by that. The thing that I'm surprised about is this is more of Michelle Mayrink's story. She is the lead character in this, yet she's not showcased at all on the videotape at all. And she is barely shown on the back here. They just show like Christopher Lloyd. He plays one of the teachers, and a kind of like a sex dream scene picture there that doesn't happen in real life. So you barely see her at all in any of the promotions. But I brought this up in our chat. I felt like if this movie had taken off, it would have kind of been her Pretty in Pink. And I felt this was her movie. She was the main character wanting to lose her virginity. She thinks she's dying because she misreads. She learns about melanoma in one of her classes, and she thinks that she's dying of cancer. And she kind of changes her goals about things, and she gives some stuff away, but she still wants to lose her virginity. And she's very charming in this film. But this is her film. It's, even though Cameron Dye is the other character, he's a side story in this. And it's just a weird thing how they did this, where they wanted to sell it with male leads. They wanted to sell it the sex romp thing. But actually, it was kind of to me, I thought it was kind of a cute little, coming of age story, learning about sex. And I love Michelle Mayring. She's adorable in this film. What I like about her too is that like she's not this bombshell girl that has to get naked in movies. She's very charming. Her younger sister was hilarious. Now, Kyle, you didn't like it as much as I did, right?
This movie is a mess, and once I read the trivia, I kind of understand why. Obviously, Martha Coolidge really had a totally different vision of than what this movie tried to market itself as and what it tried to portray itself as. And you can feel that movie conflicting within itself as you watch this. It's a very, very weird role for and performance by Christopher Lloyd. It's just weird, in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen this with John Belushi had been able to do it, and if it would have been treated like what they wanted, how they wanted to market it, like a Porky's or something of that nature. But yeah, I just came out of this movie feeling like it was like, okay, we're making a 80s sex romp, but we're doing it with our gloves on. You could feel like they were holding back. And because of that, you might have had some undertones of like a Pretty in Pink kind of thing, but it can't get itself fully surfaced because it's fighting itself trying to be this sex romp thing too. This movie would probably be PG-13 a couple of years later. So it's just one of those things too, where I think, even though I like Michelle Mayring as well, and I loved her in A Real Genius, but it's just doesn't have the star power to it either. And so it just feels weird. It feels like it's one of those things I would watch late night on the USA Network or something.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these films didn't have a lot of star power because they weren't stars at the time. They just wanted to get these quick sex comedies out. But I just felt like this was Michelle Mayring's film, and the rug was pulled out under director Martha Coolidge and her because she's just so charming. Lacey, did you see this movie at all? And you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you for saying that before I started. Okay, so I saw this a while back. I haven't seen it recently. This felt like somebody it felt like someone filmed Zapped and then cut all of the bits out that they thought might be offensive to their grandma.
Okay.
You know, it just kind of like Kyle was saying, like it feels like they were trying to do like the sex comedy, but then they kind of held back on a lot of things.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. Okay.
So
gotcha.
it's like they filmed something and they got it all done, but some of the, I remember the cuts being a little bit choppy. Like you could tell that they'd cut things off before things happened and stuff.
I just wanted to add, in talking about this, it's almost like Martha Coolidge had a crisis of conscience after she made this movie, and she's like, I can't do this. And she technically was fired from the film, but they kept her name on as credit, and she said that she had regretted doing that. But the credit I also want to give it to is if you want to give a good time travel back into what 1984 or 83 was like, there's a lot of really cool pop culture stuff just in and around this film, including the music and the settings and stuff like that. And that was one of the things I did pull out from it. And by the way, Martha Coolidge was also the director of Real Genius and Rambling Rose. And I have not seen this film, but in 1999, she did a TV movie called Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, starring Halle Berry. Yeah, I remember that. That actually got a lot of critical acclaim, and I think Halle Berry actually won an Emmy from that.
Yeah, I've never seen that, so that's interesting. Yeah, Lacey.
I think it's also the difference between when you have a male director of a sex comedy and a female director of a sex comedy.
Yeah,
because inherently you have two different points of view.
Yeah.
So.
Next, guys, we have the Philadelphia Experiment right here. I got my DVD right here, and I had just recently watched this for the first time last year, and I thought this was really cool. And the poster says 41 years ago, they opened a hole in time. And this made just over $8 million in its original theatrical run. A United States Navy destroyer escort participates in Navy invisibility experiment. This is during World War II experiment that inadvertently sends the two sailors 40 years into the future. Directed by Stuart Raphael. Stars Michael Paré, Nancy Allen, Eric Christmas. Kyle, please give us some trivia on this.
One interesting piece of trivia on this. This is actually the true story of what happened to Eddie between Eddie and the Cruisers 1 and Eddie and the Cruisers
2. Well played, sir.
Back in 1980, Avco Embassy Pictures asked John Carpenter, who served as an executive producer on this film, to write and direct this film after the success of Halloween and The Fog. However, Carpenter showed them Escape from New York, which he wrote years earlier, and they did that instead. At the time of its release, it had the fastest theatrical to video window in film history. It opened in August and was released on video by late October. So, wow, they even beat streaming times.
That's like 3 months. That's crazy. Yeah,
especially then. This film is widely believed to be based on the real life and ill-fated experiment with invisibility and force fields in the 1940s. However, to the best of any factual knowledge, no such experiment ever occurred, and the story was the work of an eccentric loner, Carl Allen, who sent notes on the experiment to the government in the 1950s.
It really happened. Come on.
Yeah. Area 51, and whose story was leaked later. Despite the lack of factual evidence, the story has become an urban legend and favorite of conspiracy theorists who point to the lack of evidence as proof that it's being covered up. Now, Kevin, you had a few points of interest on this one.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. So filming locations, one of them was Patriots Point in Charleston, South Carolina. This is where the original USS Yorktown aircraft carrier is permanently berthed. They also have a submarine there and also a destroyer. And when you purchase your ticket, you can go in and walk around and go all through the aircraft carrier. You can go on top as well. They have planes that are up there as well. And the reason why I bring that up is that they use USS Yorktown as part of the filming location on this. And it's just fascinating to take the tour on that. But I got to go for free because I was part of the G.I. Joe Finest Costume Club, and they invite us and let us go there to take pictures with the fans and the patrons and stuff like that. And while we get to go around and play G.I. Joe, it was great. And one of the other filming locations in Santa Paula, California, which is just south here of Santa Barbara, and my brother lives there. So I just had to show that little trivia note there. So, okay, let's go with you, Lacey. Your thoughts on the Philadelphia experiment?
You know, it's really funny. I have not seen this movie, but when we were going through the list, I saw that. I went, Philadelphia experiment. Okay, cool. Seen that. And up until this very moment, when you just said Michael Paré, I was like, oh, in my brain, we were talking about the Manhattan Project.
Okay, so it's funny you bring that up because right. I did a double feature of that and the Manhattan Project.
But all I'm hearing from you on this is that we need to put this in the time after the time in
our year of time travel here.
The time travel, yeah, we need to, because I just ordered it on. I just ordered it on DVD because I don't have it. I checked. I was like, oh, I have.
All right. Project. Well, I'm gonna have to get your opinion on the next show on that. Yeah. Kyle, I know you've seen this.
Yeah, I've seen it. Actually, this was one of my parents' favorite movies back in the day. They actually recorded this off of HBO because, again, so quick the video and then on HBO. It's a fun time travel story. Of course, you get Nancy Allen in it as well, which is always a bonus. I think, unfortunately, what's happened with this particular film is that you guys just hit it on the head. I got it confused with the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
So I think this film is kind of, people know it, but they kind of have mixed it up with other films. But it's a fun film. I'm always a favorite of, alternate history and that kind of thing, and time travel like this. So it's a very fun film. And like I said, now we know what happened to Eddie.
All right, guys, the next film we got here is Buckaroo Banzai. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. In its original theatrical run, it made $6,300,000. Not, of course, a big theater term, but became a huge cult classic. We've covered it here on the Fandom Podcast Network. I've done a couch potato theater of it. Make sure you check that out. Adventure brain surgeon, rock musician Buckaroo Banzai and his crime-fighting team, the Hong Kong Cavaliers, must stop evil alien invaders from the eighth dimension who are planning to conquer Earth. Stars Peter Weller, John Lithgow, Ellen Barkin, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd, Clancy Brown, and a plethora of others. Kyle, please give us some trivia on Buckaroo Banzai.
As long as you tell me what happened to the watermelon. In the original script, Buckaroo was supposed to have an arch enemy named Hanoi Zon, who was never seen but referenced to by Buckaroo and other characters. All scenes containing dialogue regarding Zon were deleted from the film's theatrical release, but are now available on DVD. Zon was supposed to be the mysterious head of a crime syndicate called the World Crime League, and also the man who murdered Buckaroo's parents and wife Peggy. Jamie Lee Curtis played Buckaroo's mother in a flashback, but this scene was deleted. The scene is available on the recent DVD release as an optional prequel to the theatrical version and as a special feature. Jamie Lee Curtis is visible in a photo of the dashboard of the jet car in the widescreen version. The movie's ending invites the viewer to watch for the upcoming film Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime League. This was the real title for a sequel that Sherwood Studios planned to make if the film had been successful. Unfortunately, it was a box office bomb and Sherwood Studios went bankrupt. However, after its release on video and cable, the film became a cult favorite, much in the way the original Mad Max film did, which crawled from obscurity to spawn 2 sequels. Legal wrangling due to the bankruptcy prevented any other studio from picking up the sequel rights, and even many years later, MGM had to fight through a pile of red tape simply to get the okay to re-release it onto home video DVD. In 2021, the novel Buckaroo Banzai Against the World Crime League was finally released.
Such a shame when it comes to sequel rights and red tape and stuff like that. And Lacey, you have a very special DVD there. Let's showcase there what you got. Hold that up there. Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
Yeah. There we go.
What you got there? Tell the listeners.
This is my autographed copy of The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension. I met Peter Weller at Dragon Con, I don't know, probably a decade ago. And it just happened that the Walk of Fame was completely dead. No one was there. I mean, like 3 people in the whole room. And I ended up standing around talking to him about early Italian and Renaissance art because he had just gotten his PhD at like 74.
That's so cool.
Just gotten his PhD, and we were just standing there talking. We talked for like an hour and a half. Like, it was the weirdest. We talked about everything from Buckaroo Banzai to, I mean, just
RoboCop,
to directing Psych, all that kind of stuff. Yes, we talked about all the things. Just very, like, could not have been a more pleasant man.
That's cool.
Just the sweetest fella. Yeah.
So I noticed you were holding up your DVD signed copy, and even though I got a Blu-ray edition from Australia right here, I kept my DVD copy because I love the cover.
Right.
And I love him that he's holding the guitar in this one as well. Just very cool. And Kyle, you and I, we did a wonderful, and with Lacey, we did a cool Couch Potato Theater on Buckaroo Banzai. But just give us your quick thoughts on Buckaroo Banzai, Kyle.
It's a cult classic, and the thing about Buckaroo Banzai is it's so bizarre and it's so weird and it's so all over the map, but that's what makes it work. And you add in just the cast of this movie. The cast of this movie is a who's who, even now. And it's got such a cult following, and it's such a crime that it is still to this day tied up in legal mess, because this is a film that I think there are several people who would just jump all over it as a chance to take on as a director of this. And there's so many people who I could think of who could be part of the Hong Kong Cavaliers and play Buckaroo Banzai. But there's one person who kind of comes to mind right now, because I think with everything he's kind of done in Hollywood, and I still think people kind of underrate him, I'd really like to see Zac Efron take a crack at Buckaroo Banzai. The guy is multi-talented. He is a much better actor than I think people have given him credit for. He's really grown as an actor. And I think he could bring that extra edge of serious but unserious to Buckaroo Banzai. And I think it would be quite interesting.
Lacey.
I have an addition to that particular cast. First of all, Glenn Powell needs to play Perfect Tommy.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And Jeff Goldblum needs to remain in his character. Like Jeff Goldblum needs to come back and just remain.
Yes.
Like, but not even telegraph it. Just like don't say.
Just play the same character, but just older.
Don't say anything. Don't mention it. Yeah.
I am going to say there is one new addition to the Hong Kong Cavaliers that needs to be made, though. We need a little universe hopping, because Michael Pena from the version of from the MCU needs to be part of the Hong Kong Cavaliers to be their storyteller and media guy.
I think Kyle wants to have Michael Pena just walk by him everywhere and just narrate whatever he's doing. I think that's what
like you would complain about that, Mr. Reitzel.
No.
Wouldn't Michael Pena make a great like for John Lithgow's character? Like he hasn't played like out of the world nutso yet. Like,
That's
he
true.
would be great as what is Lizardo, right? Is that the right name? My brain just
don't worry about it. Yeah. Well, anyway, check out the Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Just search, of course, for Buckaroo Banzai. We had a lot of fun with that.
Yes.
One last thing, Kyle.
My director for that would be Jonathan Frakes.
Of course.
Nice. Okay.
All right, guys. The next film I had never seen before. I may have seen portions of it on broadcast television. As you guys know, I've said before, we didn't have HBO, pay TV when I was a kid. And so it was kind of interesting to watch this with fresh eyes. And that is Cloak and Dagger. Just made under $10 million in its original theatrical release. And Davey Osborne is playing for keeps. This is what the poster says. Poster says it begins with just another harmless game he played many times. Then top secret documents fell into his hands and real bullets start flying. Now he's being pursued by deadly enemies and they're not playing around. But no one will believe his incredible story. In fact, there's only one person left that can save him, the legendary agent named Flack. And time is running out. Directed by Richard Franklin, stars Henry Thomas, Dabney Coleman, and Michael Murray. And what's interesting, guys, and I want to show I have DVD copies here. I did find, of course, the actual DVD copy of the film here, but I found this little double feature, and you may find this interesting, Kyle. This is Cloak and Dagger and Fred Savage in the Wizard. Double feature.
That's not a bad double feature.
So now Lacey, you have the 4K edition of this, right?
Yes.
They recently released this, celebrating its anniversary.
Vinegar Syndrome, the specialty company, they did a 4K release. Check out the cover on that. It's just really
cool.
It's like
that's cool, nice. Very cool.
There's so much glare. I feel bad. Okay. Look it up. It looks awesome. But it's actually a 4K and DVD combo, and Blu-ray combo. And it looks really good. You'd think that something, putting 4K, off of a video transfer, it's not going to be that great, but it really did transfer really well. So, I very much enjoyed it. There's some pretty solid cheesy special effects that just you can't understand unless you were there in the 80s.
Right.
This is one of my favorite movies as a kid. Like this is just absolutely one of my favorites. I watched it anytime it was on like TNT or TBS, in the afternoons, evenings. Really, this is my childhood right here.
It's a warm blankie for you.
It really is. Jack
cool.
Flack, man. Yeah. Jack Flack always escapes.
Yep.
I love the coat that Dabney Coleman wears in this film.
Yeah.
It's so that kind of grayish kind of it just looks really, really cool. And Kyle. Sorry, Lacey.
Go ahead, Lacey.
Real quick, Lacey.
I was just gonna say that Dabney Coleman is phenomenal in this movie because he plays this like just dad who's just befuddled and kind of trying to work out how to handle his son after the mother passed away. And then the character of Jack Flack, and especially when you see them in the same scenes together where Jack Flack is the imaginary friend and the dad is standing there and he's like, Jack Flack's like, yeah, he's an idiot. He thinks you're crazy. Just
yeah.
And he does really well in this. Yeah.
Kyle, your thoughts on Cloak and Dagger?
First of all, I have to echo what Lacey said. This is like a warm blanket movie for me from my childhood. So many great things. Of course, I am packed up with my softball grenade, my walkie-talkie, and my red ink dye gun. So, but no, it's so of its time. It's a good performance by Dabney Coleman, but it's such a weird performance by Dabney Coleman because you're not used to Dabney Coleman action actor, and so that's kind of one of the things that's interesting about this. But one of the things that I absolutely love about this, is the video game store that's in this film because it's that classic. It's not a GameStop. It's not like feeling like that, corporate thing. It's got that classic, like this is the one you went out, you knew the guy you hung out with, you played the games, games in it. It had the oddball games, computer games that you would find and everything like that. And I love that. And it's just one of those movies, especially if when you first saw it when you were a kid, you were into it because of just it had video games, it had action, it had this spy, it had a little RP role-playing game going on with it as too. It just had a bit of everything, and it just worked even when it really probably shouldn't have worked. Plus I have played the Cloak and Dagger arcade game too.
I kind of feel like I missed out on some nostalgia not seeing this film. I don't remember seeing it in the theater at all, of course. And so I went in, I had kind of an adult perspective, but being a kid at heart, I would get it that this movie would definitely, I would have that same nostalgia that you guys have. And so I feel like I'm missing out a little bit, but I did my best to kind of relive if I was a kid watching this. And it's pretty interesting because, you're wondering like, wait a minute, does this, so he has this imaginary friend who's helping him, this secret agent guy who's played by Dabney Coleman. He's in dual roles. And, but there's a serious, like, spy thing that's going on here that has deadly consequences, to where the guy that runs the video game shop, that's William Forsythe playing this nerd, basically.
Yeah.
And you're used to him playing heavies and bad guys because he's really good at it. And he gets killed in this. A lot of people get killed in this film, and even Henry Thomas's character shoots one of the bad guys with a gun. And it's pretty intense. And I can see why, being a kid, you're like, oh wow, I'm caught up in real conspiracy and spy work in here. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I'm glad I at least got into it. Kyle?
Yeah, I just want to hit one of the pieces of trivia here, Kevin, because I think
it's
a very good retro. The Cloak and Dagger game screens are from the arcade version and not the Atari 5200 game console as it would appear in the film. Although in a 5200 version of the game was planned, it never was released to the video game crash of 1983 and the eventual sale of Atari. Thank you, E.T. The arcade version of Cloak and Dagger appeared in 1983 prior to the release of the film. Next to the Cloak and Dagger games are boxes for the 5200 versions of Tempest. Like the 5200 versions of Cloak and Dagger, the game was never released. As a owner of an Atari 5200 when I was a kid, you have no idea how it was incredibly frustrating that you could never find those games.
And it's interesting because Henry Thomas starred in both of those two movies. Mm-hmm. That's really bizarre. Also, you could never make this movie today. I mean, just with the kid and the gun, and then the whole, the 8-year-old riding the bus by herself, and all the,
One of the things, though, and I love the little girl that was his friend, and the thing that I liked about this film is it brought back nostalgia of owning walkie-talkies, because that was such a big deal for kids. They didn't have to use the landlines with the cords, and you got this extra freedom to be kind of funny and sneaky. And I remember like Radio Shack released these little like small 2-packs, and they were just fun. Even though they only, would only be like maybe 50 yards or 100 yards, they were cheap. They had the good ones, obviously, in the movie. Those are the expensive ones. But I just remember having a lot of fun with walkie-talkies. So yeah, Lacey.
Last thing, it also had the kind of feel of like Explorers, where it was like kids that are 11, 12, 15 doing things that are real in the adult world, and no adult would believe them, and so they're doing the thing because the thing needs to be done, because this is a thing that we should do, and it just had that kind of feel to it.
All right, guys, the next film that we have is Red Dawn. Just made under $40 million in its original theatrical trailer. And I kind of feel like this is one of those films, like you remember where you were and when you first saw it. It is the dawn of World War III in the West Mountains of America. A group of teenagers band together to defend their own and their country from invading Soviet, Nicaraguan, and Cuban forces. Directed by John Milius. Stars Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Leah Thompson, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey, Harry Dean Stanton, Powers Booth, and several more. Kyle, give us some trivia first before we get into Red Dawn here.
Okay, a little Red Dawn trivia here. We've got 5 in the opening of the film. You have troopers dropping down into this town. 5 of the 36 paratroopers in the beginning of the film got blown as much as a mile off course during filming. One got stuck in a tree and had to convince locals that he really wasn't an enemy soldier. The plot, a Soviet and Cuban invasion from Mexico, was based on CIA and War College studies of U.S. weaknesses at the time. C. Thomas Howell had been a rodeo cowboy. He helped teach the rest of the cast how to ride horses. Patrick Swayze got frostbite during filming. A few years later, he said it felt like someone shoving toothpicks up his fingernails when he got too cold. And this film contains no computer graphics effects, chroma key, composites, or miniatures. All of the explosions are real and actual size. And Kevin, wait,
Yeah.
I need to get this out of my system. Wolverines!
So, I remember seeing the trailers here. It looks like you're holding up your copy there. Lacey, go ahead. We got the Blu-ray copy there. Yeah. And, you got the Red Dawn remake with Chris Hemsworth, where it's a Pacific Northwest and it's the Koreans that invade, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
So Red Dawn, we saw the trailers for this before this movie came out. Trailers came out everywhere. Print work is everywhere. And it was a scary premise. It was something that felt like it could have happened. And we were in the Cold War. We were under the threat of real nuclear war at the time. And they go and make this realistic war movie invasion because the United States hadn't been invaded before until a long time ago when they were building the country. And this was something that was like, it was interesting because when you get the Powers Booth character explaining what happened, what makes it scary is that could have really happened. And as you mentioned in the trivia there about the Soviet and Cuban invasion force, was based, on the CIA and the War College here. And that was scary because what they did basically is they decided to not just go straight in on one side. They decided to divide the country, go in straight up through the middle. And the one thing that made it interesting was that it was under disguise of commercial airlines. And that's what they did in Afghanistan. And they mentioned that in the film. And so you got basically all of the Latino countries helping him, Honduras and all those Nicaraguan and Cubans coming straight up the middle and then creating this division of the country. And that was a scary thought. And that really didn't sit with the idea of it scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. And as I got older in politics and learned more, it's like it was something that still could happen years later. And I want to kind of get your guys' original thoughts on this film and how you felt about the impact that this could actually happen. Lacey?
I fully believe that I have PTSD from this movie. Ever since this movie, I have always been like unconditionally prepared for anything. I'm always the person that has all the things in the car or in my bag, or like anybody needs anything, they can always go, "Hey, do you have it?" And I've got one. I just being prepared because they had to like run into the woods and they had nothing and they were like freaking out with what to do. Like, I think that this movie is what like put that in my head. Just always being prepared for everything. But it's a great film. I mean, I enjoyed the movie. It just scared the ding dang out of me when I was 12?
Yeah.
11 or 12 years old. Yeah.
Kyle?
This is one of those movies that, my parents let me watch this when I was probably too young to watch it, but it's so good. And you look back at that time, and yes, there's a sense of feeling of like, okay, this could happen, but you're also in the mindset, no, they're not dropping paratroopers, they're dropping nukes. That's how it's going to go, because it was such
that when you see those paratroopers, it is terrifying because you know that's not America.
Yeah. The thing I've always kind of wished with what we would have done with this, I really wish they would have done a sequel that told this. You kind of got the perspective of other places where they could have done, where I think other things happened. Maybe Red Dawn to like the East Coast or something like that. I wish they would have done something like that because it's so fascinating. I mean, but the thing about this movie is that it pulls you in from minute one, and you're in on that ride from them escaping when the first invasion comes out to going to where the store and getting the truck and everything like that, and just how they survive and how they are forced to grow up before they're ready to. And that, to me, one of the most powerful scenes in this movie, the one that I actually find is the most disturbing, is when they line up their parents or a lot of the adults from the town and just execute them. And they're all singing "God Bless America" or the national anthem, and they wipe them out. And that's you had the internment camps going and everything like that. And I think the other thing with this film is that I think this film set a precedent for a type of film and a lot of people have tried to do different things with this idea, and I don't think there's very few things that have actually pulled it off. One of the ones that I always kind of go to that kind of does freak me out a little bit, like this could be something that would really happen. I think Lacey, you would appreciate this, is the TV show Jericho.
Loved it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that really kind of has a bit of a Red Dawn feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting too, you kind of reminded me about something, Kyle, was that you were talking about one of the most disturbing scenes. What I found really scary, the execution scene is definitely heartbreaking, and Harry Dean Stanton knowing that he's going to die and he's yelling to his kids, "Avenge me" before he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that really scared me was it showed us as children of what an invading, occupying force does, and how it turns your town into basically a security force and a prison in itself. And seeing eventually the cast members dying and perishing, and one of the kids being caught and having forced to betray them basically, and then having to make the decision to kill him. But also too, the other thing that I found fascinating about it was that you get the side of the invasion force itself. You get I think it's the Nicaraguan commander, the one that could have shot them at the end, but decided to let them go. He's missing his wife, and he's writing a letter. And so you're getting that side as well, and then you're getting like the Russian commander, walking, doing the, with his troops walking down the center of small town USA there. That was just scary. But yeah, it's one of the, I watched this film quite a bit, and it takes me back to the way I was feeling. On a funnier note, though, guys, I remember where I was when I watched this. It was at the Granada Theater, the one I mentioned earlier that I just recently saw the Romancing the Stone in. And I went on opening weekend, and I think I went to an early show, and there was nothing but like 14-year-old boys or around that age watching the film. And we were all kind of spread out. And there was kind of this tense feeling going in, knowing that what we were going to see, because we'd seen all the trailers, it was scaring us, but we were so fascinated by this, and we were, watching this. And right before the trailers end, and right before the movie starts, some kid farted really loud. And then there was like a sunset, everyone like that was there just started laughing. So like all the tension came out. I'll never forget that, Kyle.
One other thing I want to say about this movie too is the way they wrote the relationship between Charlie Sheen and Patrick Swayze as the brothers. It still stands out to me. It's one of the better writings of brothers in this kind of film. And you think about it, and it's like, okay, well, if we were to become victorious at the end of the battle, you feel like that town would have some kind of statue of those two brothers.
Yeah. I mean, especially if the town still exists, because they talk about how they did use strategic nukes, and then they decided to make everything conventional because they didn't want to destroy America. They wanted to take it,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating. Now, I did have a little side note here, guys, because of how realistic this invasion was portrayed, and it was a possibility. There was a movie that came out last year that also hit me hard, because the way America was attacked was way it would happen nowadays. And this is the movie called Leave the World Behind. If you haven't seen it, it's a good movie. I liked it, starring Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke. And, basically what it is, it's about this family that gets a getaway to a luxurious rental home, like outside of New York. And then ominous turn happens when a cyber attack knocks out their devices and everything else. And there's a very scary scene at the end where you see like Long Island just being attacked and bombed, and all these strange sounds and sonic booms and stuff happen, and they're not sure what's going on. But like, it brought back that Red Dawn vibe of like how it would be done nowadays, because it would knock out all electronics and you would not know what's going on. And because so much electronics control so many things nowadays, that is something that would have the grid would have to be taken down, basically. Did you guys see that film at all?
Yeah, I did. It's very intriguing, but it's also, I gotta admit, the movie itself probably should be about half hour, 45 minutes less time-wise, less than what it was.
That's another discussion, but yeah.
No, it's the concept of it is very spot on for what it would be like if it happened today.
Yeah. So anyway, check it out. It does have a interesting ending. So yeah. So okay, the next film, guys, another film I had not seen. The Woman in Red. Not seen this film. Kind of surprised I haven't. Came out August 15th in 1984. Made just over $25 million in its theatrical run. Here's what the poster says. Of course, we've got lovely Kelly LeBrock up there with her red dress and Gene Wilder. Shy, quiet Teddy Pierce wanted a little adventure. And one day it walked into his life in a red silk dress. Now his wife is packing a gun. His friends are going nuts, trying to cover for him. And he's about to get caught with his pants down on the 6 o'clock news. Be very careful of what you want because you just might get it. Directed by Gene Wilder, stars Gene Wilder, co-stars Kelly LeBrock, Charles Grodin, and Gilda Radner. Lacey, let's start with you, and then Kyle, give us some trivia after she's done.
It was just it was a fun movie. It was kind of it wasn't a fish out of water. It was a fish in a relationship. You know, it was just, he was so baffled by all the things, which is something that he is so good at. You know, as an actor, he's so good at playing that kind of, but like, he's just so funny. I mean, and of course, I mean, you know, he's got a catalog of these films where he just plays this amazing kind of, what do you mean that, what? Oh, he's just so funny. And Kelly LeBrock is hilarious. Just in, like, she plays the ultimate straight role. Like, she doesn't make any, but she's funny. Yeah. And you don't think
very charming.
Yeah. I mean, she's very sweet and charming, and you just don't. It's a really fun movie. It's probably not something that can be made today just because of some of the conversation. But, you know, it's cool. I like it. It's definitely a good time. We'll put it that way.
Kyle, give us some trivia and let me know what you think of Lady in Red.
So a little trivia. The film was the second of 3 collaborations of Gilda Radner and Gene Wilder. Their other films were Hanky Panky in 1982 and Haunted Honeymoon in 1986. While they were in France to promote this film, the pair took a brief break from their professional duties and quietly married. The film has been memorable due to its theme tune, I Just Called to Say I Love You, sung by Stevie Wonder, which won the Academy Award for Best Song. The soundtrack was also composed by Wonder and also featured performances by Dionne Warwick. Debut and breakthrough film role of Kelly LeBrock. Debut, yes. Breakthrough film, no. I'm not going to go that because it's weird science.
It's weird science,
While not the first movie to be given a PG-13 rating, it is the first PG-13 movie to feature frontal but brief nudity by Kelly LeBrock. As far as this movie, I'm a Gene Wilder fan. This was not one of my favorites of his. This to me, this is a movie that's just kind of there with him. Give me Stir Crazy any day of the week. I love him in Stir Crazy with him and Richard Pryor.
Silver Streak too. I like them in that one.
Yeah, that's another good one. But for this movie, it was just one of those things. It was like, okay, it was a Gene Wilder comedy. I'm good. But again, that's for me. But I'm not going to never deny the genius of Gene Wilder, one of the greatest comedic actors of our time.
I miss him. I really do. Watching this movie wasn't great, but he was just entertaining. You know, I could just one of those guys I miss. You know, it was interesting. It had its moments. I didn't think it was great, but there were definitely funny moments. And Kelly LeBrock surprised me. She was good in that. Obviously looked beautiful, but you were right, Lacey. She plays the straight person in all this, and there were some very funny moments between her and Gene as well. So, but yeah, I think this falls under the category of I think the song was more popular than the movie. As they would say. All right, guys, the next movie that we have is Dreamscape. And I watched this for the first time last year. Never seen it before. Snakes! Snakes! Dreamscape came out August 17th, 1984, made just over $12 million in its theatrical run. Poster says, enter a world beyond your wildest imagination where anything can happen. Close your eyes and the adventure begins. A man who can enter and manipulate people's dreams is recruited by the government agency to help cure the president of the United States of his nightmares about nuclear war, but stumbles upon an assassination plot. Stars Dennis Quaid, Max von Sydow, Christopher Plummer, and Kate Capshaw. Kyle, give us some trivia on Brainstorm.
Was the second film to be rated PG-13 under the new MPAA ratings guidelines following Red Dawn, which had come out weeks prior to this film's release. One of the 3 movies to come out within a year of each dealing with dream manipulation and its potential consequences. The other 2 were Brainstorm in 1983, released a year earlier, and A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984, released 3 months later. Dennis Quaid was the first and only choice for Alex Gardner after the producers loved his dedication for the role and the project during its pre-production stage. Originally, during the love scene involving Alex and Jane that takes place in the middle of the film, there was supposed to be sexualized nudity in the scene, but it was deleted in order quality under the MPA's new PG-13 ratings guidelines, which does not permit nudity that is sexualized. The nudity in the scene is featured in the European theatrical and video releases, but has never been included in the American releases.
Kyle, your thoughts on Dreamscape?
It's such a fun movie, and I actually love Dennis Quaid in this role. I really feel like, this is something we haven't really dealt with in movies in a long time, is somebody entering the dreamscape like this, where they're actually kind of a hero in doing it, that they're trying to fix things. And what I like about this is that it really should have been more. They could have done more with the Alex Gardner character and probably pulled off a couple more movies out of this. And I think if it comes out now, they probably make it a series or a series of movies. Quaid is just there's something about Quaid in this role that's so good. And just even going back now, yes, the effects are a bit cheesy at times, but there's just something about this movie. It's such a great period piece for its time, as representing science fiction at this time in this kind of genre, that it stands the test of time. And to me too, where it really hit was the VHS release, because people were just drawn in by that movie poster, especially on the VHS cover.
Yeah. No, Lacey, having watched this for the first time when I got the DVD, I knew, the effects were a little cheesy, yes, but it didn't take me out of it. And by the way, when you hit the menu, there's a button you can hit, and the scary snake thing like pops out. You want to just do that on like a loop. Lacey, your thoughts on Dreamscape?
Okay, so I remember seeing this as a kid on like HBO or something in the evening, because I was too young. PG-13. My parents are very big on making sure that you don't watch the thing you're not supposed to watch. But I remember it scaring the crap out of me, because just like the weird kind of the dreamscape itself with the fire and I remember that if you died in your dream, you died in real life or whatever. And and I've never watched it since. Like I can't. I'm not a fan of horror, and you're making it sound like it was like fun, and that's great. But I don't know. I did not rewatch it for this because I was under the impression that it was still going to be scary. Now I might go back and rewatch it, but I remember it scaring the bejesus out of me when I was like 12.
I think just to really on Lacey's point, I think it was intended to be a little bit high tension, scary at times.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is Nightmare on Elm Street came out 3 months later, and it made this look like it was absolutely tame.
Yeah. But what was cool about this film, though, was the conspiracy with Max von Sydow and Plummer, using this as an opportunity to let's take out the president and use it under this other guise to do this and to do a power grab. I thought that part of the film was fascinating. And it actually surprised me. I remember seeing the video on the shelf many, many times, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I just didn't pick it up, and I never saw it on a broadcast TV thing. And I think it's one of those films that's kind of got lost in the ether because of that. It hasn't been put up on TV recently or streamers recently, Kyle.
It's one of those movies that was in heavy HBO rotation. You'd always find it around 10 o'clock at night, and it would be, you catch it then. And it felt like you could turn on HBO and it would air within 24 to 48 hours.
Never had HBO, so I didn't have access to it. I think it is one of those films that's gotten a little lost in the ether. But you're right. Dennis Quaid is great in it. So definitely. All right, guys, the next film we got here is another film I had never seen before, and that is Sheena, made over $5.5 million in its original theatrical run. And the poster says, She is an ancient prophecy fulfilled, a golden godchild possessed with a mystic gift, a gift which grew in strength as she grew in years, a gift about to be put to the ultimate test, innocence against evil. Sheena, she alone has the power to save paradise. Sheena grew up in the African wild, raised by a mythical witch woman. When her foster mother is framed for a murder, Sheena is forced to flee, helped by her ability to talk to animals and her knowledge of the jungle. Directed by John Gillerman, stars Tanya Roberts, Ted Wass, and Donovan Scott. Kyle, please give us some trivia.
Actress Elizabeth of Toro, who played the shaman, was a Ugandan princess in real life. She was also a Cambridge law graduate, a model, the first Black woman to appear on Vogue magazine, and was appointed by Idi Amin to be Uganda's foreign minister. Tanya Roberts said of this film for the publicity, it was the hardest film I've ever worked on, but at the same time, the most gratifying. It was so amazingly beautiful in Africa, the wildlife, the sunrises and sunset, the skies, the land, and the people. Tanya Roberts, as the main character, Sheena, seems to ride a zebra in the movie. It's actually a small horse wearing makeup, so it resembles a zebra.
You could totally tell that when you watch the movie, but I found it kind of adorable. This horse was painted up as a zebra.
Maybe that horse needed to feel fancy. We don't know.
Before I go on, guys, remember I teased where I accidentally bought a movie twice? Well, I bought Sheena twice by mistake. But
it wasn't a mistake.
Well, what's funny about this though is the DVD, and you're showing yours too, Lacey. Is I thought these were the exact same DVDs, but they're not. The one I ended up watching all the way through was the full screen presentation, and there was the other one that I have here is the actual widescreen and full screen presentation. That's where you have to flip over the disc to watch one or the other. I kind of wish that I watched the widescreen version of this. What I find interesting about this film, and I was looking at the other trivia on this, guys, this movie is rated PG. Have any of you watched this in the last 24 hours like I have recently?
No.
Okay, so there is full frontal nudity. There is full behind the back, full bum shot nudity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is boobs, and it's a PG film.
I can tell you another PG film that had full frontal and a rear naked shot too, and that was Clash of the Titans, the original version.
Also, film we'll be talking about next month, if I remember correctly, but don't quote me because I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a Reconcilable Differences had a boob shot as well. That's a PG film.
Hollywood did not know quite how to handle their rating system at this time. They were really confused. The PG-13 thing just got everything so mixed up. It was crazy. The thing about this movie is Tanya Roberts. This is when Tanya Roberts they were really trying to make her a thing. You had all this other things she did, but Beastmaster. They really, really tried hard to make this a vehicle for Tanya Roberts to maybe make more of these, and it just didn't take because I don't think people were ready for female Tarzan yet, and I think that's a part of it. And I mean, and yes, the Sheena legend has actually been around for a long time, but make this movie today, I think it might do much better with a better budget, some more well-known faces. I'm actually surprised they really haven't tried to do this again, but this movie still found its place within the cult realm. It's a cult class. A lot of people consider it a cult classic. Tanya Roberts is a B-movie queen, and people love her as well. So it's definitely got its little niche in Hollywood history.
Lacey, your thoughts on Sheena?
It was, I mean, I remember thinking that it was just going to be kind of like the takeoff of like Kiri from the Beastmaster, because that was a couple years beforehand. And they, you just see kind of the posters on whatnot. I didn't see this in the theaters because it wasn't something that I was going to be driven to by my parents. So I saw it probably 3 or 4 years later. It was pretty. It was beautiful. I remember like all the just like the vistas and stuff like that.
It's shot in location in Africa. Beautiful, beautifully shot. Yeah.
As I think that they relied a little bit too heavily on the ditzy aspect of like the kind of the ditzy blonde almost. instead of going for something that was a little bit more, this is, I don't know. It could, I think that Kyle's right. Like if you made it today, it would definitely be significantly changed. I think it would be definitely different. But I enjoyed it as a kid. I watched it, a bunch of times. It was always on like reruns and TBS and all that kind of stuff.
I was expecting something a little more shallow, I guess.
Mhm.
Something a little not as layered. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. But it actually has layers. There's an assassination attempt, and there's a power struggle within the country, and them trying to look for this woman, not her mentor basically. And we get the backstory of how how she was stranded there, and then you get the Ted Waz character with his friend, and so there's a lot of layers to this that I really wasn't expecting. And obviously you get her nudity, and she's a beautiful woman, and you're right about the ditzy part, but I kind of thought that she, she kind of exudes that anyway when you watch a lot of stuff that Tanya Roberts does. She had a fun run in that 70s show where she kind of plays like, the ditzy mother a little bit. But I actually thought she was charming in this, and there were certain phrases she was using to describe certain things because, she's obviously, grown up on this land, lived on the land, and Ted Waz's character, gets kind of stranded with her, but he lives, with her. And I like the fact that it was like when there's an attraction between them, she gets kissed for the first time. She doesn't know what that's like. She's like, why did you do that? And she says like, she says something about how you take things, and that's not a good thing. And he says, well, what about if I ask? And he asks if he can kiss her, and she says, okay. And then they embrace. And I thought that was kind of a sweet scene. But there's some intense scenes too, especially with the animals. And there's a scene in the film with the helicopter with the machine guns, and she's captured, and she summons the birds to attack the helicopter. And it kind of reminded me of like, I wonder if that scene inspired the Indiana Jones in the Crusade scene, when he scatters all of the, with his umbrella to bring down the plane. But I actually found this movie charming. I thought it was kind of cool. It had some moments, and you're right, Lacey. It was beautifully shot, beautiful locations, a lot of really cool animals, and there were some very smart chimps that were rolling some rocks down on the bad guys with guns. It was kind of funny. So, yeah, that is Sheena. So yeah, so I'm gonna actually keep the widescreen version that I have, and I'm gonna donate the full screen to probably a thrift store or something like that. Next, we have Tightrope, another film I had never seen before of Clint Eastwood. This movie made over $48 million in its theatrical run, which is, I guess, considered a success at the time. A cop on the edge, Clint Eastwood, Tightrope. A New Orleans single dad and cop Wes Brock goes after a serial rapist killer, but when he gets too close to the hunter, suddenly becomes the hunted. Directed by Richard Tuggle and Clint Eastwood. I guess he had kind of a ghost credit on that. Stars Clint Eastwood, Genevieve Bujold. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. I keep messing up her name. Dan Hedaya and Allison Eastwood plays real life daughter in this. Kyle, give us some trivia on Tightrope.
Actor Clint Eastwood's housemate since 1975, Sandra Locke, who had co-starred with him in 6 previous films, was not cast in the female lead role in this movie or any of the 5 other movies Eastwood made during the remainder of their relationship. Sudden Impact was the last Eastwood film in which Locke appeared, and reportedly WB studio execs told Eastwood that the public had tired of seeing movies of him teamed with Locke and not to make any more pictures with her.
Rest in peace. She passed away recently.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Director Richard Tuggle had a habit of not wearing any underwear in muggy New Orleans. One day, standing up on a camera trunk, Clint Eastwood noticed that Tuggle's private parts were hanging out of his shorts in front of everybody. He ordered Tuggle to go back to his trailer and put some underwear on pronto.
How do you not know you're flashing your figs? I know when I start to show butt crack and I pull it up. How do you not know that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, flashing your figs.
Yeah.
I have new language that I will be using as often as possible.
I originally heard that. I originally heard that when in the 80s I was watching a Lakers game with my best friend's and his dad, and Magic Johnson was sitting down on the side, and those are when they wore the shorter shorts, and he was showing some stuff on live TV, and my friend's father says, "Oh, he's flashing the figs."
I will never eat a fig Newton the same way again.
Oh, Lacey, your reaction is hilarious.
That is not the right kind of magic, babe. Just
yeah, we might have traumatized Lacey. One other piece of trivia: credited theatrical movie debut of Alison Eastwood, who played Amanda Block. She had previously appeared uncredited as a child in an orphanage in Billy Bronco in 1980. In 1990, she was stalked by a New Zealander, Mike Johnson, who allegedly had become obsessed with her after seeing this movie.
Creepy.
Yeah.
not good.
So I had never seen this film before, guys. I thought it was okay. It was a good kind of typical crazy killer trope that you see in these films, preying on women, and I thought it was kind of cool that it was shot in and around New Orleans. The one thing that did jump out on football alert there, Kyle, is that he's a New Orleans Saints fan and he's wearing New Orleans Saints gear. In the beginning of the film, his kid's also a fan, and they're talking about watching the game later, but then he gets called into work. But he goes, do you know who's the QB tonight? To his daughter. She goes, yes, Stabler. And for those of you that know, Ken Stabler used to win a Super Bowl with the Oakland Raiders, and then he got eventually traded to the Saints. So anyway, Kyle, have you seen Clint Eastwood Tightrope?
I have not seen Tightrope, but this is a time in Eastwood's career where he was just, it's like he was pulling a Liam Neeson. He was just, movies were popping out of nowhere that Clint Eastwood did. That's like the same type of film over and over again. And it's like, wait, Eastwood has another movie out. Eastwood has another movie out. Eastwood has another movie out. But they were all like a cop movie or something like Any Which Way But Loose, and the tough guy kind of thing. And it's just like, Clint, right now you might be the hardest working man in Hollywood, which eventually the title Samuel Jackson stole for a while. But it was just like you couldn't blink and there wasn't a new Clint Eastwood movie out. And it's just like,
he was a very bankable star at this time. So yeah, definitely. Lacey, have you seen Tightrope?
I honestly don't know, specifically for the reason that Kyle just mentioned. I know that I've seen a bunch of the movies that he put out in that time frame, but I could not pick one from the other. Like,
it's
just a lot. I mean, you have your favorites, Pink Cadillac or When You Which Way Would Loose, or maybe Outlaw Josie Wales. You have your favorites, but none of the cop ones really kind of got me. So
he had Dirty Harry. He had Dirty Harry, and people would go see those films. But I got to put this in the category of those ether films that get lost in it. I remember seeing all of the other Clint Eastwood movies were always playing on television with commercial breaks and blah, blah, blah. This was one of those films that just didn't get out there. And so I never saw it. And the poster never really did it for me. Let me put up the poster here. If you're watching this, I'm like, okay, it's an angry Clint Eastwood and there's some handcuffs hanging off of a bedpost there. I don't know. There's something about it. But anyway, I thought it was okay. I don't know if I'll revisit it. I'm not going to save it. So anyway, yeah. Next, guys, we have another film I'd never seen before. And that is, here we go. Oxford Blues, made about $8,700,000 its original run. And the poster says, if you're looking at this, Rob Lowe says, he fell in love with a girl and conned his way into Oxford University just to meet her. Now he's learning how to be a winner. Rob Lowe in Oxford Blues. A young American hustler in Las Vegas spots a rich English lady. Smitten, he pursues her to England, where his only chance of getting together with her is to enroll in Oxford and join the rowing team. Stars Rob Lowe, Ali Sheedy, Amanda Pays, Julian Sands, and Carrie Ellis. Another film I just never saw on the rotation, guys, and I got a copy of it, and I'm like, oh, cool, got the DVD copy, and I'm looking at the backside of it going, looks a little sus there, it's got the blue tint on it. Lacey, do you have the same sus copy as I do?
Mine was done by it says Warner I almost said the Chives. It said this WarnerArchives.com.
Yeah, they have their own printing press, and so maybe even though it's official release,
I think
Yeah.
it's the same.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
as mine. So
So I got it. It looks like that in the disc.
yep, same thing. Yep, same
Yeah.
thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kyle, give us some trivia on this, and then give us your thoughts.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about Amanda Pays. I'm sorry.
Amanda Pays, for those of you that don't know, Kyle and I first crushed on her in the TV series. What, Kyle?
Max Headroom and The Flash.
Yes. Yes.
I just need to say this. This movie contains the true trifecta of popular British actors from the 80s. These are the true fandom actors, the true fans. This is their top 3 British actors: and Amanda Pays, Julian Sands, and Carrie Ells. So you know what? We're good. We're good. We don't need to go any farther than that. But it is the debut feature film as a producer for Cassian Ewells, who is of course Carrie Ells' brother, who appeared in the movie. The film was a remake of A Yank at Oxford from 1938 and was made and released about 46 years after the original film. The character of Lady Victoria Wingate, just an awesome British name, played by Amanda Pays, was loosely based on the real-life Princess Stephanie of Monaco, and the picture has been notable for featuring an early screen role of British actor Julian Sands, of course, the late Julian Sands.
Kyle, have you seen Oxford Blues?
Surprisingly, no, but now that I know Amanda Pays is in it, I will be definitely seeing Oxford.
Do yourself a favor, check it out. Lacey, I want to get your thoughts on this because I got a little bit of thoughts on it.
I love this movie. It's great. It's very it's very definitely of its time. There's some potential prostitution at the beginning, which might seem a little bit like it's interesting.
It's straight up prostitution. Let's just talk about Rob Loeb hustling his way to get money to go to England.
I think I'm pretty sure this is the first, maybe the only time that Chad Lowe and Rob Lowe were in a film together. Chad Lowe played the younger guy, the ID guy. You're
right. I think so. Yeah.
I think that there might have been like a roast or something later on that they were in together, but I think this is the only time they've ever appeared on screen, like in the same film together, which is an interesting little nugget. I love that it was, Rob Lowe and Ali Sheedy, because they had just been, just come off of some other Rat Packety type stuff. I also really loved the concept that Julian Sands, the line is, I once told you that if I needed your help, I'd ask for it, and I'm asking. And it was just such a great scene. Anyway, so I dug it. It was really good.
Rest in peace, Julian Sands. Yeah, it was. It was nice. He's so young in this too. There's a very funny scene at the end too, if I remember correctly, where Rob Lowe is changing his outfits to the end closing credits. It's a very funny thing. I'm kind of surprised this movie wasn't as popular as it should have been. He was very charming in this. And in the beginning of the film, I love when you see 80s Las Vegas and he's living there and he ends up having an affair with a woman who's not having a rich woman who's not having it with her husband. And, and she gives him some money and also gives him her husband's car, this really awesome red sports car, which he sends to England to drive, and then miscalculates how small some of those little arches are, which I thought was kind of funny. I thought it was a charming film. I love seeing, of course, England, but Amanda Pays, Kyle, do yourself a favor, try to find it. She's so adorable in this film. But of course, when it comes down to it, you're wondering why is Ali Sheedy in this film? And then you find out why. She's the one that ends up.
Don't tell him.
Spoiler alert. Ends up becoming the assassin that tries to kill. Never mind.
That movie just took a great left turn.
All right, guys. The next film is Bolero. I ended up watching this last year. I don't own a copy of it. Came out August 31st. Made $9 million. Bolero, an adventure in ecstasy. A Canon film, by the way. Set in the 1920s, tale of a young woman's sexually awakening, her journey around the world in pursuit of her ideal lover. Encounters include an Arabian sheik and a Spanish bullfighter. Her friend and butler accompany her and help her arrange her couplings. Moderate nudity and soft porn.
Kevin, I'm invoking Zach Morris timeout right now.
Yes, Kyle, please.
The true name of this movie is called Emmanuel. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up your history of certain types of movies and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. This movie is creepy for so many reasons. Yes, Bo Derek is beautiful, but get it when I get into the trivia here. There is a creep factor in this because even I still feel creepy because
Well,
Bo Derek is not the most beautiful woman in this movie, but I feel creepy because of the age of the other person that I'm referring to when she was in this
well,
movie.
you're setting me up here. So, directed by John Derek, starring Bo Derek, George Kennedy, Andrea Achapinti, and the woman in question, Olivia Diabo. Kyle, please give us some trivia.
Okay. Olivia Diabo said in an interview in 1986 that she matured physically at age 13, a year before making this movie. In fact, she said director John Derek thought she had breast implants until she took her clothes off on the set the first time and he saw her breasts were natural. Olivia Diabo, who was 14 at the time, appeared in several nude scenes. Yeah. This film was the final nail in the coffin of the Cannon Group and Metro Goldwyn Mayer's deal that saw MGM distribute all of Cannon films in the U.S. Rather than allow the film to be released with an X rating, John Derek chose to release the film unrated instead. According to Wikipedia, Bolero 1984 was released with no MPAA rating. Its nudity and sexual content disqualified it from an R rating. At the time of the release, the NC-17 rating had not yet been established, and the higher rating being X, John Derek decided to release the film unrated. In December 1984, the film was rated R uncut. It is widely rumored in the media at the time of the film's release that the final love scene wasn't simulated.
This movie's crap.
Yeah.
Yes, you get to see some nudity, blah blah blah, but I just felt like it was a tame Caligula. I don't know. I saw Caligula once and only once. If you want to see nudity and naughty nudity, fine. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Like I said, this was basically a soft core to near hardcore porn movie. It's just Olivia Diabo a few years later was probably considered by some to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And even just the creepiness factor of all this and the creepiness factor of John Derek, who basically I feel like he made this movie to show off, look what I'm married to. That's what it really felt like. And it's weird. It's disturbing. And I there's no way this movie gets made today. And it's not even a question.
And for the record, I do not own a copy.
Is he also the director? Did he also direct her in 10?
I believe so. Yeah. So yes,
He directed her in several films. So yeah. So I think this is the only way that they would get these movies made is that if he has pull and he was able to make these. But yeah, Lacey, did you have any final comments on this? I don't know if you
No.
Okay.
Agree.
Yeah. Don't waste your time. Yeah.
The only word I have for you in regards to this movie is Skinamax.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, the final film we're going to talk about here in the month of July is a kind of a guilty pleasure horror movie of mine here, and that is Chud. Stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. And the poster says, this film made about $4,700,000 in its theatrical run. A recent article in a New York newspaper reported that there was large colonies of people living under the city. The paper was incorrect. What was living under the city is not human. Chud is under the city. They're not staying down there anymore. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Stars John Hurd, Daniel Stern, Christopher Curry, and rated R, obviously. And who else is in this here? It stars, I think those are the main guys there, basically. John Hurd and Daniel Stern are the main guys. Kyle, give us some trivia on Chud.
One of John Goodman's first movie appearances, he plays a cop in the diner. Laurie Mantos, the movie's first on-screen victim, is the real-life wife of co-star Daniel Stern. was part of Jordan Peele's inspiration for his 2019 horror movie Us, and a VHS version of Chud can be seen in the movie. The film's two main actors, John Hurt and Daniel Stern, would later go on to play roles in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Unlike in Chud, they did not share any scenes in the Home Alone films. There is a special rule about Chud too, Kevin, and I know you will appreciate this. It doesn't matter the size of your video store, whether you have 100,000 videos or you are only renting 10 videos. You are not an official video store unless you have a copy of Chud for rental.
It's true. It is required. Like if you are building a horror section, obviously you could put in the classics, but you got to throw Chud. You got to throw Chud in here. And there's some great pictures of the weird creatures down there because I kind of feel like either Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got ripped off from this or whatever, because there is a toxic thing that happens with these people that eventually turn into these weird creatures that torment people. And it's not really scary. There's a few jump scares, but you kind of know they're coming. But I don't know what it is. It's one of those films that just I kind of like this. It's a good New York film too. It's filmed in New York, and Daniel Stern is the character that's trying to find out about these people. And a John Hurt film where he doesn't play a dick, So I enjoy this film. I do have two copies of this because I don't know which one to release. One says the Midnight Madness series, the other one is more of an original version. So I'll have to figure that out though. Huh. But I did want to give a shout out to a friend of mine. His name's Drew Fortier. He had a stint in one of my favorite bands called Bang Tango, and I had him on the Hair Metal podcast because he not only wrote a book, but he also did a documentary about my favorite band, Bang Tango. But I found out he's a huge fan of Chud, and we kind of talked about that. And he is also an aspiring filmmaker and has done film work, and he released his own low budget film inspired by Chud called Dwellers. And I bought a copy of it. He signed it for me, and it's a really cool film. If you're a horror fan and you like Chud, please check out Drew Fortier's Dwellers. I believe you can stream it online. You can also purchase a copy off Amazon as well. Kyle, have you seen Chud?
It has been a very, very long time since I have seen Chud. I remember when I was working the video counter back when I was living in Alaska, working the grocery store, and it never failed. Every weekend, somebody would rent Chud, and it was just an automatic thing. I'm like, who's renting Chud this weekend? Put your money down right here, right now.
God, I would have totally played that game. What's funny though is if you look at the posters I have here, and there's one of the posters, you get to see what one of the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers is. I don't know. His face is kind of cute. I'm kind of used to his face now. I always wanted a Chud mask. I thought it'd been kind of fun to go as the Chud. So yeah, it's one of those little niche films, Kyle.
The other thing is, if you're going to double feature Chud, there's only one movie you can do it with the double.
What's
feature.
that?
Ghoulies.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Lacey, I know you're not a horror fan, but I'm assuming you have not seen this, but have you seen the video on a rental shelf before?
Oh yeah, it was always, when I worked at Blockbuster, I worked at Hollywood Video, I worked at all the different, all of them, and it was never in. It was always out. And there was always like a wait list for it, and I never, whatever, ew, gross, ew, scary, no. But now I can officially say that I'm not a Blockbuster because I don't have a copy of
You are not an official. Kevin and I will correct that for you.
Well, I'm going to be releasing one of these two DVD copies I have here. And next time I come your way, I could bring one just so you can have it. And then you could just say, this is up there just because Kyle and Kevin required that in your blockbustery type setup, you have a copy of Chud.
Okay, that's fair.
And I don't know about you, but I just love saying Chud. It's just, but okay, those memes that you see in, it's the meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you see the character that Leo's playing, and he's pointing, and it's always when someone like mentions something or says something, it's pointing. When I was watching this film, I hadn't seen it in a while, and I'm waiting for them to say cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. And then there's a scene, I think, when the mayor or someone actually says cannibalistic humanoid, and I went, he said it.
I do need to correct myself. There is one other movie you could double feature with Chud.
What's that?
Critters.
Oh yeah, critters and ghoulies. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't know. Once you finally see these people, it's the lead up to when they're like kind of haunting people and coming up from underground. Then they start like going in the apartments and like hunting one of the characters. It's your classic horror, but there's something charming about this film as well. It's just I love the effects and the music behind the suspense is good too. So yeah, so make sure you check Chud out if you haven't. But Lacee, I'll make sure I bring a copy just so you can have it on your thing. All right, guys, I did choose 3 films to put on the cutting room floor. I'm just going to mention them very briefly here because I couldn't find them or one reason or another. Just they're lost in the ether as well. The first one is called Old Enough. Doesn't have any theatrical thing, so I don't know if it was a straight to video. But basically, it starred. This is Alyssa Milano, one of her earlier films here. 12-year-old Lonnie Sloan, a well-to-do New York rich kid, and Karen Bruckner is the more ordinary, impoverished New York kid. They happen to meet one day on the street in their neighborhood and hit it off. The next film I have here is called Choose Me. And several lost soul night owls, including a nightclub owner, a talkback radio relationships counselor, and a stranger have encounters that expose their contradictions and anxieties about love and acceptance. That starred Genevieve Bujold, Keith Carradine, Leslie Ann Warren, Ray Don Chong, and John Larroquette. And the last film I have here is Flashpoint. I kind of wanted to see this, couldn't find it anywhere. About 2 U.S. Border Patrolmen that find a buried 20-plus-year-old Jeep in the desert with a skeleton, a rifle, and $800,000. They keep the money. Suddenly, the FBI shows a lot of interest in the car, and that stars Chris Christopherson, Treat Williams, Rip Torn, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferrer, and Gene Smart. Anyway, quick comments on any of these guys. Please make them quick.
Flashpoint. This is like the ultimate 80s of this time. I mean, come on, you're talking about Chris Christopherson, Treat Williams. If you can throw a wrench, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Rip Torn, Kurtwood Smith, Can You Fly, Bobby, Miguel Ferrer, Gene Smart. This is like the all-star list of 80s actors for action.
Kyle, this is a mini RoboCop prequel here because we got Kurtwood Smith who kills Miguel Ferrer in RoboCop.
Clarence, I mean, come on, you have Clarence Boddicker, you have The Substitute, this is one of those movies we got to find this because that cast alone just is absolutely insane.
Yeah. Lacee, quick thoughts on any of these? Have you seen any of them?
I feel like I've seen Old Enough, but I want to say it kind of felt like a ripoff of the Tatum O'Neal, the summer camp one. That I am blanking on the name.
You are. Oh, I'm blanking on it too. Yes,
it's Matt Dillon and Armand Assante. It's the summer camp one.
Yeah, I can't remember it. My brain's going apart.
It's gone. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Yes.
Little
darlings. Little darlings.
Thank you, little darlings.
Thank you. That was it. Yeah. Whew. So we're kind of past the summer blockbuster season here with August. None of the big money makers were in this month. We've kind of already touched on them though, but a lot of those were still in the theater during August here. And so, here we are. This is the movies of 1984, guys, and talking August. And I did want to tease what's coming up next year on the Fandom Podcast Network for Fandom Podcast Network's Time Warp is we got September. Things get interesting. We have Ninja 3, The Domination, All of Me, Exterminator 2, Irreconcilable Differences, Amadeus, Wildlife, to name a few. Interesting group there. We also got Places in the Heart, Threads, Body Rock, Heartbreakers, The Evil That Men Do, The Warrior and the Sorceress, A Soldier's Story. So we got some stuff to touch on there. But I kind of want to get you guys' final thoughts on August of 1984, Lacee.
I feel like it was an interesting kind of mix-up. There wasn't one genre that kind of stood out. There was a lot of different fare in the theater, so I think that everybody had a little bit of something, you know.
Yeah.
And Cloak and Dagger. I mean, I'm sorry, that's Cloak and Dagger's the one for this month for me. Yeah,
it's a keeper for me. Watching it for the first time, and I got it, and but you know, it's like now I want to keep both because the other one has a double feature with Wizard on it. So, Kyle, your final thoughts on August of 1984?
This is a great example of how it used to be, Kevin, where you would have kind of August was the wind down month of the summer movie season. You had those few bigger titles that people still kind of knew about, like a Buckaroo Banzai or a Red Dawn or even Cloak and Dagger. But then you had like those little things where it's like, you know, we can't really put this out in July. August seems like a good place as we wind down the summer season because it doesn't feel like a winter movie. We got to get this out. And I think that's one of the things with this particular month. You see it because it's such a hodgepodge of films, but none of them were something that I would say is like, yeah, I can see where this would be like a summertime film, but it's not that July blockbuster. And so I think this is kind of a great representation of this. A lot of fun movies. I'm a huge Cloak and Dagger fan. I love that. But I mean, to me, the movie that stands out in this is Red Dawn. I think Red Dawn is actually is probably the timeless piece out of this month of films.
I watched Red Dawn last year, and I watched it again this year. I just never get tired of rewatching that. It's just so watchable, but it's still a gritty, realistic film, and it still scares me a little bit every time I watch it. And that's what I like about it. Definitely the big one for me this month of this year, and Buckaroo Banzai as well. I didn't catch on to Buckaroo Banzai until many years later, so yeah. But it was interesting to revisit some of these films I'd never seen before. And I will be keeping Sheena. I will be keeping Cloak and Dagger, and I think I'm going to be keeping Oxford Blues for some reasons. Yeah, but Tightrope, I think you're going to be gone. Yeah.
That's okay. There'll be another mysterious Clint Eastwood movie that'll take its place.
I know. This is the Fandom Podcast Network. We're discussing, of course, Time Warp here. Kyle, let us know how we can reach you. Thank you.
You can, of course, find me all over the Fandom Podcast Network with all of our great shows from Culture Clash to Time Warp to Couch Potato Theater. And, of course, on social media, you can find me on X, a.k.a. Twitter, at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. You can find me on Discord at AKyleW. And you can find me on Letterboxd at KSport16.
Awesome. And Lacee, I just want to thank you again. I really love your insight. I love that also you went back and watched a film that you hadn't seen. You talked about it, gave your thoughts on it. I love it. And, I'm looking forward to the next time I get to see you when I visit Georgia. So, let us know how we can find you.
I'm Lacee Pants in all the places. Facebook, X, whatever, Threads, Blue Sky, Big Sky, whatever that one is. Discord, Instagram.
But you are the Lacee Pants on Instagram.
Yeah, I locked myself out of my Lacee Pants. I have it, but I can't access it. And then
Kyle?
Go ahead. I just wanted to also say that sometime soon, and I know this is going to sound horrible, but Lacee will be chudded.
No, I haven't seen
now I want to put in a Chud mask and just show up at her house with a copy of it. Copy on shelf.
Your pumpkin will protect you.
I will roll up a newspaper and straight up smack you on the nose.
My name is Kevin. You can find me on Facebook, Kevin Reitzel, and all of the socials at Spartan_Phoenix. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network for Time Warp, looking back at 1984 and August. As always, guys, thank you. And until next time, we will see you.
Kevin.
Kyle.
Can we do the cool Buckaroo Banzai walkout for the credits?
Explain that for the people that don't know that, Kyle.
The Buckaroo Banzai closing credits is just the coolest credits of all time because it's the great Buckaroo Banzai theme song, and they are just strutting their stuff right down the whole thing.
So should we turn around and just kind of look, or is that what we're doing?
I don't know. If I could play the music, I would.
Well, you got to set us up if you're going to bring up the suggestion, Kyle. Come on.
Well, copyright things and it is a thing.
There you go. Lacey's showing us her. There you go.
There we go.
You know what we're trying to do here.
All right, guys. Till next time, we will see you back in time.